Welcome to the Movies and Stuff podcast, everybody. I'm Abe, and joining me is the co-founder of his marriage, Dan. In this week's episode, we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the horror comedy film Fright Night. Later on in the show, we'll be joined by director of Fright Night, Tom Holland. I'm going to start with an oversimplification and a very fast rundown of horror, at least the way I see it. I'm going to call it new horror, started maybe with Psycho, but most certainly started with Night of the Living Dead and Rosemary's Baby. And that kind of vibe kept going through the 70s with Halloween, Exorcist, Last House on the Left, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Carrie, Friday the 13th. But by 1985, that new horror movement, if it wasn't dead, it was certainly stagnant. It was full of demented madmen running around in ski masks, hacking up young virgins. And then almost as a protest, Fright Night comes out. It's meta. It's original while still paying tribute to old horror. And it works as a horror comedy. And most importantly of all, it's a blast. So Dan, when did you first see Fright Night?
Yeah, I was probably about like 8 or 9, I'd say, when I saw it. And for, being an 8 or 9-year-old, it was pretty scary.
Yeah?
It was a pretty scary movie for being so. Yeah, I mean, I'm older now. I watch it, and I think I've replaced it. It's not necessarily scary to me. It's charming.
Yeah.
I think I enjoy it more on an entertainment value level than I do as a horror per se. But when I was younger, when I was a kid, yeah, it was a scary movie.
Yeah, it's a good point that you bring up, because horror and comedy are two genres that oftentimes don't have the best shelf life. What was scary or funny, hell, even just a few years ago, can run the risk of feeling dated. So Fright Night doesn't hold up as horror, but it holds up as comedy still a little bit, right? With its dark humor.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily saying that it doesn't hold up as horror. It's not frightening. And I think you can have a horror movie without being frightening. I think there are great horror elements to it, and it has a great tone as a horror film. I do look at it more as a comedy. I do think that there's just some great comedic parts to it, but I don't want to downplay, the movie as just having a good storyline and a good, kind of solid character arc for at least, one main character.
Yeah, right. Peter Vincent's really the only character in that movie that has an arc.
And it's great. It's fantastic. I think his arc is great. And I almost think that, he is the star of the film. I do think that Peter Vincent is the main character, and it's the catalyst. I think, it's all of this stuff is happening so Peter Vincent can have his story told.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is the Peter Vincent. It's his movie.
Yeah, totally. And Roddy McDowall owns it, and he's great.
Oh, he does.
And he was so great. And I watching it again, my wife saw it for the first time when we just rewatched it. So, hey, I just introduced it to her, so that was really cool. He had such... You can tell that he had such fun playing this part, and it just showed. There was a glimmer in his eye when he was in the scenes that he was in, and the stuff where he was doing it on the TV, where he was playing the character.
Yes,
fantastic. And then the part in his apartment where he's like, oh, I got this big role in this Hollywood film, I gotta head out, and it's like, I can pay you. When Amanda Bearse from Married with Children fame.
Yeah. Well, Marcy Darcy.
She did that only a couple years before Married with Children as well. Like,
it's unbelievable.
Can you believe that? It's been, I think it was like 87 or 88 that Married with Children came on. So, I mean, she was pretty much right on that. But she's like, I can pay you. And he's like, okay. It's how much?
$50. $50 is what he took.
No, it was $500, wasn't it? It was $500.
Oh, was it $500?
Bond.
Okay,
I think it was a $500 bond.
You're right. It was a $500 bond.
$500 bond that he ended up taking. Yeah,
I'd probably go to a vampire's house for $500.
Yeah, why not?
Oh,
so great though when he has that mirror, and he's looking at it, and he doesn't see the reflection, and he drops it, and he's like, oh man, and he books out of there. So I do. I really think that it's his story. He is the only one with the main arc in it. I think everyone else goes through, some hiccups, some bumps or whatever, but I truly think that it's his story, and it's a fantastic story.
Yeah. Well, I think Charlie's an interesting character too. He has a clear moral compass when it comes to vampires. Because remember, all Jerry asks him to do is just look the other way. Everything will be fine if you just let me do my thing and just ignore me. Pretend like I don't exist. But Charlie can't do it. But then on the flip side, Charlie's kind of a bully to Evil Ed. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick.
Yeah, he is.
And that's why he has several people living in his head.
Is that it?
Well, that's a Herman's Head reference.
Oh, we're going there. That's right. That's right. I'd forgotten about that.
No, I agree with you. I think Charlie. But I mean, who would? Would you turn the other way? Like knowing that there's a guy that's murdering women. That's essentially what he's doing. He's murdering women. And how could you trust someone like that?
True.
Yeah. How could you trust that someone is, going to keep a vampire is going to keep his word? It's like, yes, I'm a vampire. I'm going to keep my word. I'm not going to kill you. Just look the other way. It's going to be fine. Yeah.
That's true. You can't trust those vampires. No. I think Charlie's also looking for, a father figure is what attaches him to Peter Vincent. He's looking for that. Father figure. I don't know how else to say it. And I think Ed's looking for something too, because I think Ed is an interesting character too. He starts off as just this total jerk. You're so cool, Brewster. But then we learn later how much pain and suffering and loneliness he has. That scene where Ed takes Jerry's hand. That's good stuff.
Oh yeah. No, I think Evil Ed is one of the most fascinating characters, if not the most fascinating character. Even though it's Peter Vincent's story, I think Evil Ed, he just shines in it, and he's got some great moments. I think 2 or 3 just amazing, awesome moments in it. And he's kind of a jerk early on, but you can tell that people are being a jerk to him, so he's just kind of like reflecting it back. It's just bouncing back the suffering that he's getting onto other people. But yeah, he's a really just kind of emotionally damaged guy. And in the same sense, whereas Charlie might be looking for a father figure, Evil Ed is definitely looking for someone to care for him, and might not necessarily be a father figure, but the fact that Jerry invites him to be part of what he's doing just meant a lot to him. Like, he willingly gave himself to Jerry.
Yeah.
Is
there any subtext in Ed's performance based on what he did afterwards? Does that creep into the mind at all, or no?
Yeah, I don't think so. I really don't. I honestly, I just think it was a solid performance, and I think who knows why people get into the things that they do. I can't get into his mindset to try to explain like his career choices after this. All I know is he had a great performance in this, and I would have liked to. One of my issues almost with this movie is it's too short. I would have liked it to be a little bit longer. I would have liked more Evil Ed development. I would have liked that. It feels a little on the short side.
A little too rushed, maybe?
A little bit at times. I think a little bit more development of Evil Ed would have gone a long way. The other Jerry, boom, point on. No, nothing more needed. Great.
Yeah.
Sexy vampire guy that lives next door. Married to Susan Sarandon. Like, there you go. No story needed. You kind of get it. Charlie, same thing. I think Charlie developed as much as he needed to. But you start, learning more about Ed, and you start liking him, and you want more scenes with him, and before you know it, he's dead. Maybe.
Yeah. You're right. And I think the thing that separates Fright Night from a lot of horror is that Charlie, Ed, and Peter Vincent, they're all kind of at the point in their lives where they're struggling to define who they are as men and what kind of people they're going to be. And I think it's even more interesting that each one kind of arrives at a different place. Ed accepts the vampire. Peter Vincent believes in it himself, and Charlie's faith in Peter Vincent's redeemed. I think that's a step above an average horror movie.
Oh, totally. There is so many just great, underlying elements to this movie that puts it above a ton of movies from the 80s. A ton of horror movies a ton of movies from the 80s, but a ton of horror movies in particular. It's great stuff, and the interactions are fantastic especially between Charlie and Peter Vincent. I think they have some great moments together. But even when Evil Ed is in Peter Vincent's apartment, he's at the door. He's like, "There's a vampire out here. Let me in."
Mm-hmm.
And that whole scene is just awesome. And he gets the crucifix burned into his head. And it's great stuff. And there's just some great interactions. And I think that there's just a lot more going on in this movie than as we said, most horror movies in the 80s.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Jerry. We can talk about Jerry. Jerry's fully defined.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's nothing more needed from that.
No.
And I think I love his manservant though. Billy Cole.
Yes.
His manservant. That's I can't really explain it any other way.
No.
I guess it's kind of a Renfield type thing, right? You think?
Yes.
It's almost like but not quite. Not as he's subservient, but in a way, it feels like he's got a little bit more power than like Renfield had.
Oh yeah, Renfield was a total bitch.
Yeah, exactly. Billy Cole's kind of a badass.
Yeah, he is.
Gets fucking shot, stands up.
Yeah. That's right, kid.
Yeah. It's like, what you looking at, kid?
Yeah. He's badass.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So where does Jerry rank, you think, as far as cinematic vampires?
I mean, he's not on the Dracula level.
No.
But he's better than possibly the Dracula 2000 level. No, I like him. I like him as a vampire, and I'm not huge into vampires. Like, it's one of the horror, subgenres that I'm not truly like into. I put him better, definitely above Interview with a Vampire.
Oh yeah, he could kick Lestat's ass. Whoa,
better than them. There you go.
Yeah.
Up there. It's a good vampire character. I think he has that awesome kind of almost serial killer. It's not just he's a vampire, but he's almost like a serial killer. That's kind of fascinating. Is that he's one of them was a call girl, right?
Yeah, I love it when evil is seductive and inviting, not just menacing.
Right, yeah. And he's got a menace to him, and he's got that creature aspect to him, too, where he morphs into that scary-ass fucking creature.
Yeah.
But, I dig that.
I think something else I really appreciate about Fright Night is, as far as meta horror movies go, Fright Night stands apart. Tom's love of horror comes through so much. Especially when you compare it to a certain filmmaker that tried to make a meta horror film, let's say, 8 years later, and then tried to do the same goddamn thing, 3 years after that. But he clearly dislikes horror or is embarrassed to be doing horror. Off topic, have we ever asked Wes Craven to be on the show?
No.
Never mind, everybody. So, Dan, did you see the remake?
Oh, it was terrible.
You saw it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, terrible. And I'm a Colin Farrell fan.
Yeah, I was gonna say that he didn't do well.
He did well. I mean, he always does well. Honestly, it's tough for him to do. He's a great actor. I really enjoy him as an actor. Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't. Fright Night is a movie that exists in a certain period of time and was made in a certain way and had a certain love and passion put into it, and to try to recreate that just fell flat on its face.
Wow. I was trying to think of that. I've never seen the remake, and I can't imagine how they pulled it off. mean, there's no late night TV horror hosts anymore. Your local channel isn't playing, old horror movies at 10 o'clock at night. I just don't see how it would work. It's totally different now.
Yeah, it's a whole new world. Whole new world.
Yes, it is. Okay, any more Fright Night? You got anything?
No, I'm excited to talk to Tom Holland. I've talked about this great movie, so let's get him on.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's take a break, and when we return, Tom Holland.